A man bought a ghost town for just $70. But what awaited him beyond the abandoned streets was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. A widowed woman and her 3 children, struggling to survive in the middle of snowstorms, until the arrival of this stranger would change their fate forever. We're just a few steps away from reaching 1,500 subscribers, and we'd be honored to have you with us. Thank you to every kind soul who's joined us so far. With your support, we share peaceful, heartfelt stories that warm the soul. If you enjoy calm, meaningful stories, don't forget to subscribe. You're part of this family now. Now, make yourself comfortable. It's time for the story. As the snowdrifts swirled in the wind, silence seemed to hang over the abandoned town. The only sound was the crunch of frozen snow beneath Adam Keller's boots, giving him away. The cold sank deep into his bones, his breath turning into icy clouds in the air. He reached into his pocket for the folded paper, the deed to a town no one visited anymore, bought at an auction for just $70. The laughter of those present still rang in his ears. $70 for a ghost town, they had mocked. But Adam hadn't laughed. He saw what others didn't. Beyond the rotted boards, the sagging roofs, and the snow-covered streets, he saw a land waiting to be reborn. And for Adam, this was the only way to free himself from the burdens of the past and begin again. When he reached the main street, the dark shapes of buildings emerged through the wind-blown snow. Most were close to collapsing, their windows shattered, their signs creaking in the wind. In that silence, even the faintest movement echoed. Then his eyes caught something. Against the pale sky, a thin thread of smoke rose slowly and disappeared. Was someone still living here? Adam's heart raced. He slowed his steps, heading toward the building where the smoke came from. As he climbed the steps, the brittle creak of wood echoed in the dark. Just before he knocked, he saw a sharp-eyed face appear briefly in the window above. A child. The tension and hunger on the boy's face carried the marks of years spent battling the cold. Adam knocked, the sound instantly swallowed by the muffled silence of snow and wind. The door cracked open. A woman stood before him, upright but unable to hide her weariness. Clara looked at Adam through gray eyes above the scarf wrapped around her face. Her cracked hands and patched coat were silent witnesses to years of struggle. Adam lifted his hat slightly and greeted her politely. "My name's Adam Keller. I'm the new owner of this town." Clara's face showed no surprise. As if she'd been expecting news like this for a long time, she only straightened her shoulders and said in a cold voice, "This isn't a place to live." But the hardness in her eyes wasn't meant to drive Adam away. It was a wall built to protect her children. Behind her appeared a broad-shouldered young man. Daniel, Clara's eldest son, not yet 20, but already carrying the full weight of a man's responsibilities on his shoulders. His eyes mixed anger with unease. He looked Adam up and down, then said coldly, "We're managing. We don't need help." He seemed ready to slam the door shut, but a brief look from his mother stopped him. Adam nodded and quietly stepped back. Perhaps, for these people, the word ownership meant nothing. To them, survival, a warm meal, the safety of a roof, those were the only things worth owning. Yet something inside Adam stopped him from walking away. That night, he slept in the ruined barn across the road. The smell of old hay mixed with snow that had drifted through the broken roof. Amid the howl of the wind, faint sounds reached him from the other building. At first he thought it was the roof creaking, but then he caught the sound of a soft laugh. Children's laughter. Thin but defiant joy he hadn't heard in a long time. Wrapping himself in his blanket and closing his eyes, Adam felt something unusual settle inside him. Not a life that belonged to a stranger, but an invitation to one that wasn't his yet, either. By morning, he saw Clara outside chopping wood. Daniel stood nearby, as if guarding against the stranger. Behind the window, 2 smaller faces appeared. Sophie, already carrying the household's burden though still just a young girl, setting order at the table. And little Jonas, who watched Adam through the glass with curious eyes. Unlike his brother's harshness or his mother's weariness, his face showed only pure curiosity. Without thinking, Adam walked over. Clara's axe was stuck in a knotted log. Adam quietly took it, split the wood in 2 with one strong strike. Clara didn't thank him. She only held his gaze for a moment. In her eyes was both caution and an unspoken gratitude. Then Daniel's voice cut sharp through the cold. "This is our place, not yours." Adam set the axe down, locked eyes with Daniel, and said, "The snow doesn't care who it belongs to." Silence fell. Clara's lips trembled, and then barely a smile appeared. But it vanished quickly, replaced again with distance. Later, as Adam explored the town, a sound echoed among the empty shops, the faint crunch of sled runners in the distance, a signal that stirred his instincts. Soon, a tall, lean man appeared, dressed in a coat far too fine for such a place. His eyes fixed on Clara's house, a sly, confident smile on his face. Adam slipped into the shadows to watch. He saw the man exchange a few words with Clara. Her shoulders stiffened, her eyes turned to ice. Adam noticed the stranger's gaze drift toward the inside of the house, and his chest filled with anger. When the stranger finally left, Adam knew the town's silence had been broken, and that hidden family had drawn more than just his attention. Deep down, he felt this was only the beginning. Late at night, as Adam lay in the dim light of the ruined barn, he listened to the noises outside. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but the sound was uneven, heavy thuds at steady intervals. The crunch of hooves on snow. He sat up, the cold air stabbing his lungs like a knife. Peering through a crack, he saw 3 shadows at the edge of town. Lantern light danced across the snow, their shadows bending and stretching across the facades of the buildings. Adam instinctively glanced toward Clara's house. No light, curtains drawn, but he was sure everyone inside was awake. Adam crept quietly to the barn door. The strangers didn't approach the house. Instead, they moved slowly down the street, as if scouting the area. Snow-covered boards groaned under their boots as they spoke in hushed tones. Adam caught only a few words: woman, children, supplies. A cold anger rose inside him. He clenched his fists, but chose to stay hidden. Not yet. Adam knew waiting was often a stronger move than fighting. After a while, the strangers turned back and disappeared. By morning, the town seemed quiet again, as if nothing had happened. But for Adam, everything had changed. That threat, that dark intent, was more real than the freezing air. He crossed over and found Clara splitting wood again. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed from a sleepless night. When Adam came closer, she paused for a moment, then returned to her work. "Did you hear them last night?" Adam asked. Clara didn't look up, but her voice was firm. "Of course I did. It's not the first time." Daniel stepped out behind her, his eyes flashing with aggression. "They'll be back," he said through clenched teeth. "And next time they'll try to get inside." Adam understood the young man's anger. But anger alone couldn't be a shield. "Yes," he said calmly. "But the snowstorm is our ally. The road is long for them. For us, this is home. We need to be smart." Daniel didn't like that. He snapped, "This is our home, not yours." Clara put a hand on her son's arm, softening the tension. But Adam could see the truth. She was fighting that same battle inside herself. She wanted to trust him, but her heart wasn't ready to open. In the afternoon, Adam scouted the town's outskirts. Inside a few buildings, he found usable scraps of iron, old barrels, rotted shelves. He gathered what he could, always keeping one eye on the horizon. He knew the strangers would be back. He wouldn't be caught unprepared. At the barn, he propped sturdy boards against the entrance for a makeshift barricade. Then he quietly checked the back window of Clara's house. The hinges were nearly falling apart. With his knife, he tightened and braced them. When night fell, the family stayed inside. Adam knocked on the door. This time Clara hesitated, then opened it. He held up an old sack of nails. "One of your windows is about to fall out," he said. Clara's face stayed tense, but she stepped aside. "Come in." As Adam entered, the children's eyes turned to him. Little Jonas looked at him with excitement, while Sophie's gaze was shy but curious. Daniel's stare was still cold. Adam ignored it and went straight to the windows. The hammer's strikes echoed through the quiet house, and Jonas smiled faintly. In that moment, Adam's presence felt less like a stranger's and more like a missing piece sliding into place. But peace didn't last long. A groan outside, then a horse's whinny. Daniel leapt to his feet, his face tightening. Clara pulled the little ones behind her. Adam gripped the axe and stood by the door. From the snow-covered street, a man approached with heavy steps. This time he wasn't alone. 2 others were with him. They pounded on the door. "What do you think hiding will get you?" he shouted. "The snow won't protect you forever. Inside, you either make a deal with us or disappear." Clara's breath quickened. The children's eyes widened with fear. Daniel looked ready to charge, but Adam raised his hand to stop him. From behind the door, his voice rang out firm but calm. This place isn't empty anymore. I'm here. Turn back. Silence followed. Then laughter outside. You? Protect them all? Alone? Adam slowly cracked the door open, snow whipping across his face as he stared straight into their eyes. Not alone, he said. Behind him, Daniel stepped into view. Clara pulled the curtain aside, standing with them. Even the little ones peeked from the corner of the doorway. The sight itself gave weight to Adam's words. You won't get through us. For a moment, hesitation flickered on the strangers' faces. The snow raged harder, the wind howling. It was as if even nature stood with Adam. The intruders backed away, but their eyes carried a clear warning. This isn't over, they said, then vanished into the darkness. The door shut, and silence filled the room. Clara's hand trembled on the bolt. Adam looked at her, and in his eyes there was only one truth. This town was no longer just a ghost town. Here was a life worth protecting, a family worth standing beside, and a fight that was only beginning. Snow fell harder all day. The street had vanished, the lines between buildings erased. The town was buried in a blank whiteness. At dawn, Adam rose and walked around the house. The groaning sounds of the snow-laden roofs created a tense feeling, as if everything could collapse at any moment. But what was most unsettling wasn't the silence. It was the waiting hidden behind it, because Adam knew the strangers would come back. Inside, Clara was busy with the children. Sophie scribbled in an old notebook at the table, as if to distract Jonas. The little boy giggled, seeming to forget the danger outside. Daniel stood stiff at the window, watching like a guard. When Adam stepped inside, he saw both anger and fear in the young man's eyes. Adam walked closer and laid a hand on his shoulder. Standing tall is always good, he said quietly. But sometimes the way to stand is not just strength, it's wisdom. Daniel didn't answer, looking away. But Adam noticed the boy was listening. Even if he denied it, a spark of trust toward Adam had started to grow inside him. That afternoon, when the storm eased, the first sign came. First a horse's whinny far off, then the slow crunch of hooves on snow. Clara instinctively pulled Jonas close like she was shielding him. The color drained from Sophie's face. Daniel's eyes lit up, fists tightening. Adam stepped to the door. 3 shadows emerged through the snow. In front was that tall man again, the sly smile on his face. 2 others followed behind. They all wore heavy coats, but what burned in their eyes wasn't the cold, it was greed. As they neared the house, their steps slowed. You're still here, the tall man said mockingly. Not even the storm could drive you off. So you mean to stay? But staying has a price. Adam stood in front of the door, not even feeling the cold on his face. If you've got something to say it to me. Not inside. The man didn't like that. His eyes flashed, his voice hardened. I am saying it to you. The woman and the children need protection. You don't understand how things work here. We make the rules. Adam stepped forward. Snow crunched under his boots. This land belongs to me, and they are under my protection. If you want to act wisely, turn back. There was a pause. The wind howled, snowflakes stinging their faces. Then one of the men in back laughed. There are 3 of us, and we've got a rifle. Who do you think you are? Adam's eyes turned cold. He didn't raise his hands or reach for a weapon, but the steadiness of his body made them hesitate. Still, the leader lunged forward in anger. In that moment, Daniel couldn't hold himself back. He threw the door open and rushed outside. Clara's cry of no was smothered by the storm. The young man leapt at the stranger but was shoved to the ground in an instant. Adam sprang forward, pulling Daniel back up. Fists flew in the blizzard until Adam landed a hard blow that staggered the attacker. The other 2 reached for their weapons. Adam pulled Daniel behind him and shouted in a fierce voice, "Draw that gun, and the snow will bury you. You won't make it back." The storm suddenly swelled, as if to lend force to his words. Wind roared through the buildings. For a moment, doubt flickered in the strangers' eyes. With dark looks, they backed away. Their leader hissed through clenched teeth, "This isn't over." Then the 3 of them melted back into the snow. Inside the house, silence took over. Daniel's face was flushed red, his eyes blazing. "We should show them our strength," he shouted. Adam turned to him, calm. "Showing strength is easy. Being wise is harder. If we had fought now, we'd have been the ones to lose." Clara gathered the children close, her eyes locked on Adam's. In that look was gratitude and fear. But most of all, the silent question of a woman standing at the edge of a decision. Should I trust this man? Later that night, the house grew quiet. With the fire crackling, Clara sat mending a patched blanket while Adam kept watch by the window. The children slept. Daniel stayed awake, though he didn't speak. Adam stared into the dark outside, and the feeling in his chest grew stronger. This town was no longer just an abandoned place. Here lay a test, and to pass it, they would need not only strength, but heart. When they woke in the morning, the town was silent. The weight of that silence almost hurt their ears. Adam stood at the door, his eyes fixed on the blanket of white snow. On the frozen, crunching ground, there were no tracks no one had passed during the night. But this peace felt like the silence before a storm. Inside him was the shadow of what was coming. Clara was quietly preparing breakfast inside. A few pieces of dry bread, some hot water with thin leaves of herbs. The children's eyes were still heavy with sleep, but fear was written clearly on their faces. Daniel stood by the window like a guard, watching outside. When Adam came to the table, Clara gave him a brief look. Tired, but strong. She realized that this man she had not known a few days ago was now someone she unwillingly had to rely on. In the afternoon, a sound came from outside the town. First a distant rumble, then the hoofbeats of several horses. This time it wasn't just 3 men. From the barn's shadow, Adam counted at least 5 figures, wrapped in thick coats, armed. The ease in their steps as they came toward the house showed this wasn't just a casual visit. Adam quickly went back inside. Daniel jumped to his feet. "We can fight them," he said angrily. Adam's face was stern. "If we fight, it has to be at the right time." Clara pulled the children behind her. Her hands were trembling, but the hardness in her eyes showed the will of a woman who had survived alone for years. A hard fist pounded on the door. From outside came a mocking voice. "Stop hiding already. How much longer do you think you can survive this cold in there? Your food will run out. Your wood will run out. Then we'll come and take everything you have. Or we can make a deal. The woman and kids stay safe, and in return, the house won't be yours anymore." Clara's face froze. Jonas clung to his mother in fear. Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed silent. Daniel was about to rush forward, but Adam raised his hand. Stepping to the door, he answered in a deep, firm voice. "This house doesn't open to men like you. No supplies, no people will be handed over. Turn back." A short laugh rang out outside. Then the voice grew harsher. "Fine. When the snow melts, when the road clears, we'll be back. And next time, we'll open this door for you." The sound of horses faded into the distance. But the threat weighed heavier than the storm itself. Adam knew this was only a delay. They would return, in greater numbers, better prepared. As night fell, the house was quiet. After the children went to sleep, Clara sat across from Adam, mending an old blanket. She threaded the string, pushed the needle into the fabric several times, then spoke without looking up. "If you keep staying here, you'll be their target. You know that, don't you?" Adam didn't take his eyes off her. "It doesn't matter to me. I've got nowhere else to go. But for you, it's worth it." Clara's hands shook, the needle piercing into the cloth and stopping. Every word on her lips carried the weight of years of exhaustion. But she stayed silent. She only lifted her eyes to his for a brief moment, then quickly returned to her work. From the shadows, Daniel was watching them. He didn't want to trust the stranger, but he had seen the change in his mother's gaze. And that both angered him and stirred a strange unease inside. By midnight, the snow picked up again. The wind roared, rattling the roof. Looking out the window, Adam saw something. A shadow moving slowly in the darkness. A lone rider. He wasn't approaching the house, only circling at a distance. As if waiting, watching. Adam's throat tightened. This was the staging of an attack. They were waiting for the right moment to strike. Adam went back inside. Clara was still awake, sitting by the fire. Her eyes locked on his. In a low voice, Adam said, "They'll come back. And this time with more of them. We need to be ready." Clara nodded slowly. Her lips were pressed tight, but in her eyes, alongside fear, there was something else, determination. She was a woman who had learned to survive for years. But this time, she wasn't alone. As the night dragged on, the wind outside had eased, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Adam knew this was more dangerous than the storm. Silence served hunters well. From a dark corner of the barn, He pulled out an old axe and a handful of rusty nails, then carried them to the back of Clara's house. He began reinforcing the doors and windows. Daniel joined him, anger still burned in his young face. But in his eyes now there was something else, determination. "When they come, I'm ready to fight," he said through clenched teeth. Hammering the nail into the board, Adam answered without looking up, "Fighting is easy, Daniel. What matters is fighting at the right time, in the right way. Otherwise, you just lose your life." Daniel fell silent, but listened, taking in every word. At midnight, the moment came. Heavy footsteps crunched across the snow. Then a sudden blow struck the door. Jonas woke and clung to his mother in terror. Sophie clasped her hands as if in silent prayer. Clara pulled her children behind her, eyes fixed on the door. A voice shouted outside, echoing through the night. "Open the door, or we'll drag everyone out one by one." Adam gripped the axe and stood before the door. His face was cold, his voice steady. "Anyone who steps in here won't be walking back out." The door shook again. Then a rock came crashing through the window. Glass scattered across the floor. Daniel moved to charge forward, but Adam stopped him. "Wait," he said. "Don't give them what they want just yet." 3 more shadows appeared outside, rifles in their hands. Though the storm made aiming difficult, Adam rushed to the window, crouched low, and began nailing boards in place. The hammering echoed through the house. Jonas began to cry, and Clara pulled him close, whispering into his ear, "Don't be afraid. We're here." Suddenly, the door groaned as if it might give way. Adam turned to Daniel. "Now," he barked. Together, they pressed their shoulders against it. The next blow rattled the wood violently. Curses rang out from outside. On the final strike, the door cracked open slightly, but Adam pushed back with all his strength. Daniel braced with him. The boards groaned, but the door held. Clara rushed over with a coal scuttle from the stove. Adam pulled back, and she spilled the embers through the crack. Sparks and smoke hissed out into the snow. Angry shouts rose outside. Adam slammed the door shut again and dropped the bolt into place. Inside, everyone was breathless. But the assault wasn't over. A noise came from the back of the house. Someone was climbing through a window. Sophie screamed. Adam ran, driving his axe into the window frame. The intruder yanked his hand back and vanished into the dark. For a moment, silence. Then the sound of footsteps retreating. Horses neighed. Hooves pounded away across the snow. The house fell heavy with stillness. Everyone's hearts seemed to beat in unison. Clara stroked Jonas's back, trying to calm his trembling. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his breath still ragged. Adam stood at the door, eyes fixed on the dark outside. This had only been a test. Their true attack had yet to begin. But one thing was clear. This house was no longer only Clara's and her children's refuge. It was his fight now, too. Clara came to stand beside him. Her hands were still trembling, but her eyes were steady. She looked at him, her voice low but clear. "If you want to leave, you can go now. But if you stay, then this house becomes your home, too." Adam never looked away from her. "I'm not leaving," he said. And in that moment, in the heart of the snowstorm, they made an unspoken agreement. They were no longer alone. Days passed. Snowstorms piled layer upon layer over the town, silence wrapping everything like a heavy blanket. But inside, life was slowly finding its rhythm. Adam chopped wood in the mornings. Daniel helped him. Sophie stood by her mother's side, preparing meals, while Jonas followed Adam around whenever he could. At first, Clara simply watched in silence. Then she realized this man wasn't only building barricades, he was quietly helping piece their broken household back together. But peace didn't last. One morning, hoofbeats echoed under the snow, returning to the town. This time, there were more of them. When Adam pulled back the curtain, he counted at least 7 shadows. Armed, and with no hesitation. Clara's face went pale, the children clung to her in fear. Adam stepped to the doorway with steady steps. "Today is the day of decision," he said. As the riders drew near, the tall man in front shouted angrily, "Enough! This place will be ours. The woman, the children, they'll be under our protection. Your games end here." Adam stood in the doorway. No gun, no rifle in his hands. Only determination in his eyes. "This is the land I bought, and it's their home. You won't take one step further." His words echoed in the snowstorm. But the strangers' eyes gleamed with mockery. 2 of them dismounted, reaching for their weapons. At that moment, Daniel stepped forward, holding an old stick Adam had given him. Clara cried out, "No, Daniel!" But the young man didn't back down, even with the fear in his mother's eyes. "This is our home," he said. One of the attackers rushed the door. Adam lunged to meet him. Swinging his axe, he knocked the weapon from the man's hands. They grappled in the snow. Two others tried to climb through the window. Sophie screamed. Clara grabbed the shovel by the stove and swung it at the window. Metal clanged loud, and the attacker fell back. Jonas was crying, but Sophie held his hands. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "We're here." Through his tears, for the first time, a brave look flickered in the boy's eyes. Outside, the fight raged. Adam was thrown down, but he quickly rose again. Fists cracked against the snow. Daniel, fueled by all his fury, drove one man back. The strength of his youth gave him the power to push the attacker off. But more still pressed forward. Adam drew a deep breath, his voice booming loud enough to drown the storm. "You won't come back again. Your road ends here." His words rang out like an oath across the snow. And in that moment, it felt as if nature itself stood with him. The wind suddenly surged, snow whirling into a blinding curtain. The intruders squinted, their horses rearing in panic. Adam seized the moment. Driving his axe into the ground, he stood tall, Daniel at his side, Clara and the children behind him. Together, they stood like a single wall. The tall man locked eyes with Adam. Rage burned in them, but so did fear. After a brief silence, he spat on the ground, teeth clenched, then mounted his horse. "This isn't over," he shouted. But the certainty in his voice was gone. Then he and the others retreated, their shadows fading into the white emptiness until they disappeared. When the door shut, everyone inside let out a deep breath. Clara's knees nearly gave way. Adam stepped to her side and quietly took her hand. She lifted her eyes to him. For the first time in years, there was something in them besides fear. Gratitude. And something more. Daniel stood weary but unbowed. Sophie's face carried a smile streaked with tears. Jonas clung to his mother, but in his eyes shone the spark of trust. That night, a quiet peace filled the house. Clara sat by the fire, Adam across from her. She held a small candle in her hand and passed it to him. "Put this in your room," she said. "If the dark comes early, let it light your way." Adam took the candle. When his eyes met Clara's, no words were needed. This was his home now, too. Outside, snow fell silently, covering the tracks of their enemies, drawing a white curtain over a new beginning. And Adam Keller, who thought he had bought only a ghost town for $70, realized he had found something far more valuable: a family, a life, and a future worth fighting for. By the way, we noticed something small. Most people who watch these stories aren't actually subscribed to the channel. Maybe we get caught up in the moment, or just forget to hit the button. But your support truly helps us keep creating stories like this. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.